Hello, this is Dr. Stanley Lang. Welcome to this broadcast. And the topic today is on kelp herbal tea causing hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism, that means an overactive thyroid gland, or at least the appearance of one. And just thought I'd share these thoughts as a kind of a warning for people that sometimes self-medicate with herbs and maybe don't understand some of the potential for doing harm with some herbs. Now, some herbs are pretty benign. Some of them have some pretty potent chemicals in them. And there are people that are called herbalists because there's actually a lot to know about herbs and how to use them correctly. So I'm not trying to claim that I'm an herbalist, just that I have an appreciation for herbs and do use them somewhat in my practice. But I was seeing a patient recently that had some very unusual symptoms that were developing. It turned out that she was hyperthyroid, very hyperthyroid, but she had a very, very unusual pattern for hyperthyroidism that suggested that she actually had a pituitary tumor that was causing the hyperthyroid state. In other words, the pituitary gland was secreting a hormone which was making the thyroid gland secrete a lot more hormone. So she ended up having lots of different tests done to look for why she was hyperthyroid in the first place, and was the pituitary gland involved and all this stuff. And then her hormones started to gradually improve, and she started to feel a lot better. She had a whole host of different symptoms that had happened to her, which I won't bore you with, just the point being that she was very hyperthyroid and then slowly got better on her own, but with a form that usually only happens if the pituitary gland is involved. And then she started telling me about how she'd been drinking this kelp tea, and that had been going on for a few months prior to the onset of her symptoms. And about shortly after I saw her the first time for the symptoms, she decided to stop drinking this tea. And it was shortly after that that her numbers then started to come back down to normal. And now she's basically back down to normal. Now, that's a pretty good evidence that the kelp she was drinking, the kelp tea she was drinking, was the cause of her problem. It's not proof, but it's a definite interesting correlation. And why would that be? Well, kelp is very rich in iodine. And so things that are rich in iodine, if you take too much of them, will overstimulate the thyroid gland and cause it to produce a lot of extra hormone. And so I do want to caution you in terms of herbal strategies that have some real potency to them, to don't just treat herbs as benign chamomile, which is a nice herb. Pretty hard to hurt yourself with chamomile, but some herbs are quite a bit more potent, and some of them can do outright damage if you don't know what you're doing. So just encourage you to be appropriately cautious. You can find out a lot about what herbs are pretty safe to use for self-medicating without a lot of monitoring, but which herbs would be better supervised by somebody that knows a bit more about the herb. So hope you found this story interesting, and a reminder to take herbs seriously. So what's more safe, herbs or medication? Well, herbs are generally a lot safer than medications if you want to look at it from that angle. So I'm not trying to say that herbs are dangerous and medicines are safe. Far from that. Medicines cause lots and lots of problems, even when used appropriately. But some people have the misunderstanding that herbs are just safe and that they can't get into trouble doing them when you can. So I wish you well, God bless, and have a great day.